Okay, in this video, I'm going to show you how to use the formula Q equals mc delta T to solve for energy, which is Q. So the first thing we have to do is define all these variables. Q is energy in joules, which is abbreviated as J. M, you might have guessed, is mass in grams. C is specific heat capacity, which is that thing we were talking about, where it varies for every substance, and it basically tells you how easy or difficult it is to heat or cool a substance. So the specific heat capacity is the amount of energy required to increase the temperature of 1 gram of a substance by 1 degree Celsius. So it kind of has interesting units. The units are joules per gram degree Celsius. It's the amount of energy required to raise 1 gram by 1 degree Celsius. And finally, delta T is the change in temperature. Sometimes you'll just be given the total temperature change and you can just use it as is. Other times you'll have to subtract the final minus the initial temperature to get that. Okay, so I'm going to give you an example of how we could find the energy of a specific change using this formula. Okay, so I have a problem on another whiteboard. Iron has a specific heat capacity of 0.45 joules per gram degree Celsius. All right, so we're going to underline this because this is one of our given quantities. How much energy, so this is what we're trying to find, is required to raise the temperature of 10 grams of iron by 45 degrees Celsius? Okay, so let's take a look at our formula. Q equals mc delta T. So I think it's really helpful whenever you're solving with a formula to write each of the variables out before you try to just plug things in. Because sometimes when people just try to plug things in, they wind up putting numbers in the wrong place. All right, so the problem tells us that iron has a specific heat capacity of 0.45 joules per gram degree Celsius. All right, so looking back at our formula, specific heat capacity is C. So my value for C is 0.45 joules per gram degree Celsius. All right, how much energy? All right, so Q is energy, so that means that this is our unknown. Is required to raise the temperature of 10 grams of iron by 45 degrees Celsius. All right, so the mass is 10 grams, and it just gave me the final temperature change, which is 45 degrees Celsius, okay? So now I can substitute these numbers into my equation and solve. So I'm trying to find Q, and it's equal to the mass times the specific heat times the temperature change. And look, it's nice to put units in when you sub in the numbers, but I sometimes think that that gets a little distracting for people because it makes the equation look so crowded, which is why I haven't done that here. So now all I have to do is multiply those numbers together on my calculator. 10 times 0.45 times 45, and I get 202.5 joules. And so that's my final answer. All right, so I want you to try a very similar problem and see what you can come up with.